Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Triple P, the Pats Pro podcast. I'm your host, a cartoon avatar on Twitter, and sometimes write about Patriots news, Pats Pro. Tonight, we've got an Everything Goes podcast. We're recording 8:24 p.m. at night while the NBA draft is going on. We're going to be talking about Celtics, Patriots, little Red Sox, and I'm going to try, I don't know how, but I'm going to try to fit some Star Wars in here. It's an Everything Goes podcast. So if we go off on tangents, we go off on tangents. I'm not going to limit us to anything tonight. I'm not alone, however. Tonight, I am joined by at SavageSports _ on the old X machine. Savage Sports. Savage, welcome in. Thank you for joining us again. You're the first repeat guest.
Whoa, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, exactly. So without further ado, I know we were talking just before the pod here. We're going to get just you and Nick Cattles did an excellent podcast on the NBA salary cap last night. I would suggest everyone go listen to Savage's podcast for that. Him and Nick, as well as I forget your friend's name, even though I've been on a pod. Brad, yeah. So he had some good insights as well. But I mean, I just have one NBA question. How friggin' dumb is the NBA salary cap?
Honestly, I just don't get why. It's just more philosophical. For every league has their different approach, right? And like the NFL, we have what's like they claim it's a hard cap. We all know it's extremely flexible, right? I'm not saying cap is crap, but you can manipulate it. Baseball has no cap, right? The NBA has gone with this newer model of the first luxury tax, first apron, second apron, where if you're going in the second apron, you have such egregious penalties. Again, before trading those two guys yesterday, the Celtics were going to pay something like
it was $500 million,
$12 million,
something
right?
crazy.
And now it's instead of that, it's going to be like whatever it was, like 270.
Yeah, it was like 275, 200, because they're still on the first apron. But yeah. I think some people were theorizing if Brad trades like Hauser or somebody tonight, he can get under that first apron into luxury tax and might be able to get below the luxury tax.
Yeah,
but I think
that probably will. I think Hauser's probably going.
He has to be,
soon.
Right?
I think so. I mean, that's been the strong rumor. I haven't heard anything the last couple of days, but he was certainly rumored to get traded.
Yeah, we keep hearing Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Oh my God, they're going to get traded. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that'd be a stupid move. They're both Jason Tatum guys. I mean, Jaylen Brown not so much, but definitely Derek White. So yeah. I think Hauser's the likely choice. I keep hearing we're calling San Antonio about the number 14 pick, I think it was. Yeah. I saw that rumor. I think that could be like a Hauser type trade. Use some of that capital they got from the Drew Holiday trade, which I must say, getting what they did for Drew Holiday, the 2 seconds in return, as well as that 3-point shooter who I cannot remember the name of.
Anthony Simon?
Yeah, Anthony
I think
Simons.
He's going to get traded too.
Yeah, no, he's definitely going to be part of the package. There's no way that guy's on this team. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again. But I did a little digging into it last night because I was like, how in the hell did the NBA Players Association allow the NBA to do this crap? Because I get we want parity. I get, we want to make everything even. But I was listening to the Pat McAfee show today, and Boston Connor actually had a really good point about this. I think it was the way that it's set up with like the super maxes and everything like that. You actually punish teams for drafting well after a certain point. Because let's say you've got your homegrown talent. I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are the perfect example. They're both on supermax contracts, and they're already in the first apron. Like, in order to sign any more premium talent, you have to go to that second apron, as evidenced by the situation we just got out of. So it's just like, it feels so short-sighted because you're essentially just saying, okay, yeah, we're going to draft well, but then we just have to get rid of these guys. We're not going to be able to retain talent. Like, that just doesn't seem fun anymore.
Well, I think it's silly that, like you said, if you draft and develop well, by the time a few, like 5 years goes by, they're due for their super maxes. And mind you, like, these are max contracts. Like, these guys aren't allowed to sign for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So they limit that to keep generating higher and higher contracts. And so you basically get these dudes on like a 5-year, $300 million deal. And if you get two players you developed well, that's 60+% of your entire cap.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid how bloated the contracts have gotten. That you can't seem to spread it out well. Like maybe they just need to elevate the cap further. I don't know. Like I'm not I'm not Pat's cap. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't study the cap. I just know that the system's not working. And like clearly this was backlash from when you had LeBron forming his super team and
exactly.
Durant forming his super team. And they're like, we got to prevent this stuff somehow. So they started having extraordinary penalties. Like if Golden State wants to pay all these guys, they're going to go and have an extremely high tax penalty of like double their salary,
Yeah,
you know?
it's ridiculous. Honestly, it just, I mean, it's why the Grosbecks are selling the team. It's just because they can't afford to compete with guys like Steve Ballmer.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the Grosbecks, yeah, they're to us, and Nick brought up this exact point. So sorry, Nick, I'm copying your point. The Grosbecks are worth, $2-3 billion. To us, that's a shit ton of money, as Nick said. But to some of the other owners, that's chump change. That's nothing. So it's just,
Yeah.
you know what it is? I heard somebody make this point a few years ago. The NBA lost control when they started letting players be like the focal point of the league instead of the teams themselves. Because the more money the players get, the more that the richest owners are just going to be like, okay, give me all the good players. So it's a tough situation, but boy, the first and second apron conversation, I am so sick of it. It is so stupid.
I honestly like did more digging into it than I ever have before just because of the circumstance. And it is mind numbing. Like I hate having that you have to focus so aggressive on the cap and the taxes versus you should be focusing on how do we make the best team. And maybe it will, maybe it influences the CBA in the future. And I don't know if they can just, if this is an on the fly decision they can make by ownership, or do we have to have a full negotiation to change the tax aprons? But yeah, I think it's weird. Like again, like why not just have a hard cap if that's what you, because that's basically what this is. It's
Yeah,
having a hard cap without saying it's a hard cap because the penalties are too severe. So it's like, do you want guys actually going over the cap or do you want a hard cap? So like,
yep.
I don't know what the league is. Then the other thing, the other piece to it is the league should want good teams and good matchups. And I guess they were sick of LeBron or they were sick of Golden State. I didn't think the league was doing too poorly then
It
because
was like the
you had
highest rating in 20 years.
yeah, you had juggernaut matchups. Like the league wasn't as good of a place when it was like the early 2000s with like the Pistons and the Spurs. Like those weren't superstar exciting teams at the time. And I know the Spurs were great, but Tim Duncan wasn't that like face. He wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, like LeBron and Durant came in and they elevated, and Steph Curry elevated this league. And now you need the new generation, but maybe this CBA squashes that. I don't know.
It kind of has to. I mean, you just look at the matchup that we had, the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, two, quote unquote small market teams. Nobody watched it. Like I tuned in because I'm just, I love mostly all sports, but like, who the hell from friggin' Los Angeles that is a casual fan is tuning into that? They're not. You know what I mean?
Nobody.
So it's just like they're losing. Like I guess I'm making the argument for only have teams in big markets, but like, can we get some stars besides Tyrese Halliburton and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Like, is that
It
possible?
just was the perfect storm of bad towns. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like
Yep.
you just have like two mid-America nice towns that went at it with those don't have I'm not trying to call out fan bases, but like these aren't historical fandoms. These aren't like teams that have had success winning and a huge culture. Like I don't know, they don't bring a ton of juice globally. Like Shy to me is a fantastic player in the MVP, but he wasn't able to carry it. He couldn't carry the ratings. So I think it's one of the lowest ratings finals in a long time. And I know they see it. They're going to sit down in a room and say, okay, what do we need to do differently to have this be more exciting? Like if we had a full healthy Celtics team versus Oklahoma City, the ratings are probably double. So it is what it is.
Are we East Coast elitists? Is that what we've
I'm
become?
certainly an elitist. There's no question about that.
It
I
feels
mean,
like that's what we've become throughout the
that I will not
conversation.
deny. I'm an elitist in many ways.
That's fair enough. I do want to kind of touch on, because this kind of melds into the conversation pretty well, as the Red Sox. Andy Hart had put out on Twitter, and let's see if I can actually find the direct quote of it, because I had an argument to what he was saying. So Andy put out, it's two tweets here. So, Celtics fans, after a couple of trades and in the midst of a lot of rumors, do you feel relatively confident with the direction Brad Stevens is taking the team? And 86.1% of people said yes. He then retweets that and says, when Brad dumps salary, he's a trusted genius. When the Sox do it, people do nothing but complain. To which I had a problem with, because, like, to me, I'm like, you know why there's a difference. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but, like, there's a difference. To which, he's like, oh, enlighten me. And Andy, God love you, but I know you know this. Like, it just, for
Did you
me.
get into it with him today?
Well, no, I gave, he just said, I don't actually, enlighten me. And I gave him my reason. I haven't heard from him again. So I'm going to assume he's busy, and not that, I've won and I'm the smartest person alive. I am. But, so essentially my argument was, for one, there's no salary cap in baseball, which is mostly true. Plus, look at the Celtics' history over the last few years. Brad Stevens has a history of excellent decisions. With the two deals he did, he got rid of two aging stars, one who is hurt damn near all the time, and the other one who's just getting up there in age. He's still a solid player in Drew Holiday, but, like, Kristaps Porzingis spends more time in the recovery facility and on the bench than he does playing, at least the last 2 years that we've had him.
Listen, they're lucky they found someone to take on Porzingis.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like that was a harder deal to get done. They found someone who could try to probably market him. You don't even know what illness he has. Like, you got people speculating online about multiple things that we don't need to do here, but was severely ill. He has a classic kind of like lean, extremely tall body type that's very, very injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get hurt again, and he's incredibly inconsistent. He was a shell of himself. So, like, for him, easy guy that you had to get off the roster. And then for Holiday, he didn't feel like the same guy either, and he's aging on a bloated contract. So, like, neither of those contracts, like, yeah, are you worse today? Yep, you're a little bit worse.
100%.
You're worse. But that doesn't mean you can't get better still before the season begins.
Exactly, and this gives me a chance to bust out my Alex Jones impression. He's got long COVID. It's a terrible. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, first of all, he got picks back for Holiday. He got under that second apron. I mean, that's just a smart decision. He made a good business decision to help the future of the team. That's what Brad Stevens does. So, like, there's history of Brad Stevens making good choices.
Yeah.
And there's also
they're still towards the top of the league in salary cap.
Yeah,
by the way.
but
they're still like at the top of the league. The Boston Red Sox are different. Boston Red Sox make a shit ton of money. They're a team that used to be in the top 5 every year in payroll, and then have decided in the last 3-4 years to drop below 10 in payroll. So that's the problem with the Boston Red Sox. We can go on I can yell about the Red Sox for forever and how they've handled the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, that's what we're going to get into, because my argument is, with the Sox, you angered the franchise player. Yeah, you may have been underwater on his contract. I don't give a shit. He didn't react well and was a cancer in the locker room and blah, 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 whatever the hell they want to say. But the team has consistently mismanaged that roster. Like, that's the difference. Brad Stevens is a professional, and the Red Sox are a clown car organization. I don't think it's that hard to see. And, like, say what you want about the Celtics, at least they try every year. It seems like the Red Sox are constantly, to quote, everybody on radio, interest kings, and, oh my God, we're going to do it this year. Let's trade for Alex Bregman, and then just absolutely piss off our franchise player and then trade him. But it was a salary dump. It wasn't a salary dump. It was because he was fucking pissed off. He pissed him off to the point where he didn't want to play for the team anymore.
The Red Sox thought that they could manage the team. They had to shed salary themselves. They wanted to save money. They had a bloated team and had no development. So they're like, we're going to do it both ways. We're going to shed some people. We're going to build the farm, blah, 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 blah. So they've been working at building this farm since 2019, right? And shedding people. And here we are. I don't know how long it was supposed to take to rebuild the farm, but they still suck and are a mediocre team. And their salary is dropped. Again, they're back to like, I think 13th in the league right now. They were supposed to be higher after having what was ultimately a pretty good offseason compared to the guys they had going into the year. But with the Boston Red Sox, this is a premier franchise that makes an unbelievable amount of money. They own their network. They're a huge value team. They're like a living museum. They have plenty of money. They could easily be a top 5 payroll every single year, but they've just screwed it up to such an epic level. And now they hire such robots. Like literally Breslow is a robot. And they can't function around other humans, that they're scaring people out of town. Like, watch what happens if they don't sign Alex Bregman. Like, people are going to go nuts because I guess they need to like renegotiate his deal, or he might opt out and go somewhere else.
Yep.
So anyway.
So that's the point, though, is that the Celtics manage beautifully, manage smartly by a guy who knows what he's doing. And on the other side, you have the Red Sox and Craig Breslow, who are just the seemingly the dumbest professional sports agency I've ever seen, at least in the last 20 years in Boston. The Bruins can also make a strong case, but I don't know enough about hockey to talk.
Yeah.
Now,
hockey. Well, I can give you like two seconds on hockey.
Hit me with the Bruins.
Yeah, I know. I'm not like I'm not Mr. Hockey, but I got friends that are much more knowledgeable than me. All I know is this: with with Don Sweeney, okay, they've done well with the talent he inherited. They did well with their veterans. They've made some solid additions. Where the Bruins have totally blew it and malfunctioned is Don Sweeney cannot draft and develop. It's like if Elliot Wolf was there for 8 years or whatever, drafting and missing every single year. Like there would be a problem. So that's why people don't like Don Sweeney. You had this incredible core of players, and he came in and they just blow it. Every year they have no homegrown young talent on the Bruins roster. Like period. So there's my Bruins minute.
All right. Well, listen, that's more than I know. So you've given the listeners something that they can actually chew on, because when I talk,
they're aware if they followed it all.
They're aware. With me, it's just like there's a puck that goes on the ice and they skate. That's as far as my hockey knowledge goes, because I never watched it. So that was my thing. I think you and I are in agreement that there is a stark difference between how the Celtics are managed and are managing their salary cap versus how the Red Sox are managing it. I think we agree on that,
right? The
right?
Red Sox and Craig Breslow did not need to trade Rafael Devers.
Yeah, exactly.
That was not necessary. Or you could have waited to the trade deadline and had some sort of bidding war when the team sucked. You could do lots of things. What they did was have a massive ego hit because he said, fuck you, directly to John Henry's face when he went for a personal meeting and flew a private jet. He's like, I'm not playing first. Go F yourself. And basically, the egos for both of them were too big. And they go, fuck it, let's get him out. Just make sure they pick up his entire salary. And they blew it. They blew the personal relationship. You traded your best hitter by far, and a guy, apparently they don't value the DH. That is what it is. But like, you needed this guy in your lineup, and it's a disaster, honestly.
It's a total shit show. So one thing that I wanted to mention is earlier today, the Utah Jazz signed their one of their big men. So I posted about it. Of course, I don't have it because I'm not a professional podcaster, but so do we think Kessler could be on the move? They're one of the Utah Jazz's centers because they just signed John Collins excised his player option. So, like, what do you think about Kessler?
I don't know, man. I'm not, I know that the Celtics need a lot of help at center. I think Al Horford is gonna maybe leave.
According to Shams, like he's had quote a robust off
Yeah,
season, like
market.
a market, whatever it is. Like that's crazy. Al Horford's old as shit.
I
How
mean,
the
they
hell does he have a
need
robust market?
well though because he's still pretty good and he
Yeah,
can
I
shoot
guess so.
threes, but they're probably gonna sign Luke Cornett as like a backup center.
Yeah.
But you need an actual center. And they were really missing that, and you felt it in this postseason when Porzingis they had no one on the inside. They started falling apart, couldn't rebound. So you still have
Even
to rebound.
Porzingis was a 3-point shooter at certain points. He wasn't really like the inside guy we were hoping for.
No, but he can rim protect. You know, he's
Yeah,
so
that's true.
tall. Like it's like Chet Holmgren from the OKC. Like why he's so good. They're built
Yeah.
the same way. They're both like 7'2" and look like skeletons. You know, like they have literally their body. They have zero body fat. They're just ectomorphs, where they're just super lean.
Yeah, they're like Gumbies.
Yeah, there's lean, but
Yep.
that's that body type. And so those guys get hurt often.
All
They're
the time.
tough versus like, LeBron has more of a leaner muscular type. Like you can hopefully get
6'8",
less injured
240,
versus Zion Williamson has more
5%
of
muscle fat.
like an endomorph, right? He's
Yeah.
like fatter, so he's gonna typically get hurt more.
Listen, Zion Williamson is down there. He's on Bourbon Street. He's having every piece of just anything he can get his hands on, okay? Anyone who says they want Zion Williamson, I don't know what they see, but all I see is a guy who gets injured 5 games into the season and just keeps gaining weight and weight, which is, by the way, I'm not fat shaming. I'm fat, but you're a professional athlete. You were supposed to be the next one, and you're over here just drinking maple syrup.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely no go. That's not a fan of him at all.
Yeah. Uh,
But yeah.
all right. Well, so that's NBA. That's baseball. Uh, I want to actually touch on something really quick here, and you and I have had our argument on Twitter about this, but the Moneyball strategy was a part of the 2004 season. It was. For the lower part of the roster, it absolutely was. So what's your argument
Well, okay,
that's not
so
correct?
Twitter is not a good place for nuanced argument.
You're kidding.
And Twitter is not a good place for things that take a while to say. I think it depends on what is your definition of Moneyball, right? And I'm not trying to be coy and move goalposts. I think if your definition is Moneyball or for instance using analytics to get more out of cheaper players, is that the crux of Moneyball? Like what in your definition, what's the crux of Moneyball?
So the crux of Moneyball, and this is as it's portrayed by Billy Bean himself, but also by the movie Moneyball, because they're mostly similar. It is using analytics to replace production of more higher value players across the entire team. So
For less money.
For less money, yes.
Okay.
Having said that, the Red Sox had, what was it, the second highest payroll in baseball that year? Third highest, something like that.
Correct, the second highest.
But the principle that they used, yes, they had a high payroll, but the principle they used was to spread the production that they, saw to be a winning formula throughout those highly priced contracts. That way they were getting the most of it. So like the principles that they were using still stand. They were just infusing the massive amount of cash that they had.
See, I think like if the principle is we need to replace higher, more expensive players with less expensive players because we have superior analytics, then I think what makes me feel like that has less importance to the 2004 Red Sox is who are the best players on that team?
Yeah.
Who are the best players on the team? Who could they not have won without? And who did they have to pay? I mean, you have Manny Ramirez, massive free agent. You had to pay Pedro Martinez to come to your team. You did trade for Kurt Schilling, who was making good money. You paid Johnny Damon. And yeah, you had the good idea of trading Nomar out to bring in a couple, get the bad culture guy out, and then bring in a couple like Orlando Cabrera and I think Dave Roberts in that trade. But basically, you had guys you signed through free agency. I mean, David Ortiz, yeah, like that one. I don't know if you could say that's Moneyball, but clearly Ortiz was a really good growing player. Who I remember the stat line. I believe I'm right. He had 20 home runs and 88 RBIs in Minnesota his final year in like 2002. Could be way off, or my memory could be sharp. I'll have to double check that, but he came in 2003, and I think had like 31 homers and 101 RBIs. I'm not reading this right now. This is just from my baseball memory.
So
I have to double check this.
He finished the 2002 season batting 272 with 20 home runs and 75 RBIs.
75, not 88. Okay, I was wrong. Okay, what's the 2003 stat line? Is it 31 and
2003 stat line is, where the heck is it? 299, 10 home runs.
2003?
Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm reading that wrong. Hitting 21 home runs in the 63 games he played. I think
2003.
What the hell am I reading? Hold on. Oh, he finished the season with 31 home runs, 101 RBIs, and a 288 average. Yeah, so you got it.
Boom! That's from fucking 22 years ago. Anyway, just wanted to get that out there and show off. I got one of those right. Anyway, so my point is, if your philosophies we can win with replacing high priced talent with lower priced talent and make it work. I don't think it's in the spirit of Moneyball that the Red Sox had the second highest payroll in baseball. That's my point. It's not the spirit. Like, you don't win without paying talent in that league. And ultimately, the Oakland A's, the reason they were good that year wasn't because they jerked around with Moneyball. It's because they had Barry Zito, Mark Mulder, and Tim Hudson on their pitching staff. That's why they were that good. They had a ridiculous pitching staff. So anyway, there's my Moneyball.
All right. You know what? I'm willing to concede this argument here. I'm willing to do so.
It's just the spirit of it. It's is the spirit right. Like the spirit of Moneyball? Sorry, if it's in my opinion, you should be like the 20th payroll, right?
And still
you
have
won
the
championship because team, you were the first dude to discover what the fuck war was or something. Yep. Right? It's not you're the second highest payroll. That's like saying the 90s Yankees used Moneyball because
they paid
they signed like David Cohn one year, or whatever it was,
All right, your point is well made and is quite salient. So we're actually going to move on here. I do want to ask you about the Patriots. I have talked to my guy. There's really not many moves that are really going to happen, but I want to ask you, if you had your pick, would you rather trade for Trey Hendrickson or Terry McLaurin?
I think you would have to go McLaurin based on need, just purely out of need, right? Like he would, if you had your wide receiver core with McLaurin and Stephon Diggs and then Pop Douglas and Kyle Williams, like that to me, I'm loving that. Like, and that becomes a much more elite core. I think you still have a massive line problem. But that's a pretty elite wide receiver group, and you moves you probably top 10 in the league. I mean, with Diggs and McLaurin, like that's legit. So I love that. You can't go wrong with Trey Hendrickson. People make up stuff on Twitter, and this one account decided to make up they're in the final. Like that's lying.
Oh
that's
what was that? NFL football rumors or something?
That's not real. That's not. People should know that. That's not a real account. But it doesn't mean they haven't made a call. I think the Bengals would absolutely trade Trey Hendrickson, but you would have to know that he's going to sign here, and then you'd have to want to pay this guy $30 million a year to play D-end. Would I do it? Yeah, I would. But you just signed Harold Landry and you have Keon White.
Yeah, I mean, it's been beat to death about how Landry's numbers aren't what they are cracked up.
But they paid him a lot.
Oh, they paid what, $33 million over the next 3 years? That's a lot of money.
Yeah, they gave him plus more than I thought he would get.
Yeah, plus Keon is in his third year now, so like he should actually do something. I have my problems with Keon White just because. How many times can you tell me, oh, I don't got a coach, before it's just like, no, it's you, buddy. Like,
that's a good.
This is my last year of being like, okay, Keon White, freak athlete, all about business. Like, yeah, he looks like one of the Easter Island heads, just stone faced all the time, no emotion. But like, how many times can I hear that your coaches suck? You know what I mean?
He had one sack in the final 15 games.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, I'm getting, and like he's even in interviews like trying to take accountability. Oh, I'm just I'm not staying in my lanes. I'm getting selfish. Well, like, why are you doing that in the moment? Like, you're just trying to be an asshole? Like, what is it? So it's just
Yeah,
like
I
that's my
think
Keon White dump just because I'm
his whole
almost sick
got
of it.
even lost last year in all the Mayo nonsense and absurdity. Somehow Keon White's um, quote, I feel like, went under the radar because there was just so much going on. Any other year, if a guy's like, we need to make changes at coaching, like he said
Yeah,
that.
it's
He said
crazy.
that in the middle of the season, like near the end
I
of the
just feel like I'm
season.
not getting coached. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah, any
thanks
other
for
team,
having
you're
the
like,
team's
all right,
back.
buddy, like go sit. You imagine
Yeah.
that under Belichick?
Oh my God, bro, he would be jettisoned into space faster than Jamie Collins.
See
You
you
remember when
later.
you
Yeah,
remember
go
when
join
Jamie
the
Collins was
Browns
like,
with
"Hey,
Jamie
fucking
Collins.
pay me," and Belichick was like, "Actually, how about you go to the worst team in the league? How's that sound for you?" Like that's how Belichick handled business. Keon White was like, I feel like I'm not getting coaching. If Bill was here, he would have punted his ass off of the fucking lighthouse.
Yeah, there's no question. So I thought that was wild, and yeah, Keon White needs to show up this year. I don't know. We got to see what kind of player he is. See if he's that dude. If he is thinks if he can really play a 3 down D end. I think he can be that guy. He could be really a real stalwart DN that plays like you said. He could be. Why can't he be Trey Hendrickson? Why
Yeah,
can't you develop into that?
why can't we actually get lucky and hit on one of our second round picks?
That's what I mean.
How
Like
many?
when
How
was
many?
Trey Hendricks taken? Was he like a third rounder? I think it was like
You
New
know what?
Orleans or something.
We've got the advent of the computer and the digital age. Let's look it
Was
up.
he a third rounder in New Orleans? God.
The
How's my
the
memory today?
the fact that you let's see.
Yeah, third
Yeah,
round to New
third
Orleans,
round New Orleans.
2017.
Good,
God
good
damn it, I'm
for you.
fucking on
God
it.
damn, you are on the numbers
Woo!
today. I can't even compete with that. Like I'm trying to sound smart, and you're just freaking
No, it's only
rattling off
'cause I
numbers.
got a semi-photographic memory, so I just like I'll
Oh,
read
lucky.
something and I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I've got that ADHD brain. I need to organize all my thoughts before. Like if you were to look at my desktop right now, I literally have all of my notes on what I want to talk about on the podcast, damn near written out like to the letter of how I'm going to frame everything. Just because
No,
if
I
I
think
don't,
that's smart. It's better when I do.
well, it's just
I just wing it.
if I don't, I'm just like let's So yeah, good for you. I'm jealous, I'll be honest. But I said I wanted to relate something to Star Wars, and we did talk about Bill Belichick, so I'm gonna use this to just segue over. Obviously, Bill is the emperor of the football world. Everyone's seen that meme. Um, so just to get into Star Wars, if Bill Belichick is the emperor, who would you say Darth Vader was? Is it Tom Brady, or was Tom Brady Luke Skywalker?
If Bill Belichick is the emperor, I mean, I suppose in this analogy, Brady would have to be Anakin Skywalker,
Yeah, okay. So
right?
that was going to be my second question
Like the
because
initial chosen one, but then maybe like he
no,
doesn't go off and murder all the children.
well, technically, Anakin is the chosen one. He was always the
True.
chosen one. It was
He
never
brought
Luke.
balance to the Force.
Yeah, exactly. So he would have to be Vader, right?
I think he would have to be, yeah, he would have to be like little kid Anakin.
Yeah,
And then like eventually, yeah, like you said,
corrupted
don't
by the
murder
dark
all the children.
side. Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna tangent this too. Like someone had to take online a big Star Wars account, and he said something. He was trying to defend Vader because we were watching. Oh, this was it. It was Star Wars Theory. Okay, do you know that account?
Oh yeah.
It's one of the biggest accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he's talking about how in Andor, which was one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars
Great
media
show.
there's
Great
ever
show. I
been.
could do a
It's
whole
fantastic.
pod about Andor.
Yeah, it's fantastic, right? But he's like, there was a sexual assault part of it, and he's like, you know what? The Empire doesn't need to do that. They like Vader would never do that. Vader would never. He's like starting to somehow defend Darth Vader, Anakin's character, and people were like, wait, dude, like he murdered an entire, like, what was it, hundreds of children? Slaughtered children.
Damn near 1,000 slaughtered children, slaughtered other Jedi, the people that he'd been around for, 25 years, 15 years at that point.
And it's somehow like in this guy's head is like cognitive dissonance. Like he just somehow couldn't believe the character he loves. Like it's okay in his brain that he murders all these children, but he couldn't imagine him doing sexual assault. So I just thought that was a really interesting point. I don't know. There's a point in there somewhere.
I kind of understand your point. Like Darth Vader, like people think that, well, evil has different types. No, evil is evil, like regardless. So I mean, like, yeah, oh, the Empire doesn't need to do that. Andor is great evidence that anything the Empire wanted to do, they did, and they did it real bad,
Yeah.
and they did it a lot. And it's just like all the lying and the conspiracy and everything like that.
How do you
It
feel like the retconning, or maybe not retconning, because you're probably near my age. How old are you?
32, I'll be 33
All
in
right, you're a
October.
little younger than me. I'm 38. So like you probably are more partial then to the prequel trilogy
Oh, here we go. Yeah,
because you're a little younger than me, right? So I'm 38 and I really did like my dad's massive Star Wars. So I really
so was
grew up with
mine,
the originals, right?
as did I.
And then when I did what I was 12 when episode 1 came out. And I liked it. It was good, but to me I actually wanted more adult.
Hmm.
I remember back then when I was 12, I was like, "Oh, I kind of wanted more like a little less kiddie," and then people were complaining about how kiddie it was. And then Clone Wars wasn't that great of a movie.
It wasn't.
And then Revenge of the Sith was good. I remember watching it and be like, "Wow, that was pretty good," but it still didn't feel like the original Star Wars.
Yeah,
And so now looking back, people are like ranking Revenge of the Sith as like the second best Star Wars of all time.
yeah,
It's
me.
like, what do you feel about this kind of the retconning of the prequels?
So for me, it looking back at it just from like a filmmaking perspective, when it comes to I guess all the episodes are the arc of Anakin Skywalker, right? But it's the transformation between Anakin and into Darth Vader. For me, Revenge of the Sith, it falls like anywhere between 2 and 3 for me, just because it's like, oh, you see how it's illustrated in that movie pretty well, I'd say, why Anakin was corrupted by the Emperor, why Anakin felt the way he did, and it all comes
Mm-hmm.
back to a child's psychological issues of being separated from his mother and fearing loss because all he's ever done is lost in his life. You know what I mean? Because he
Yeah.
was a slave.
Yep.
So for me, looking back at it, hindsight's, always 2020. Yeah, it didn't feel like the originals felt to me because, like, I'll be 100% honest, I've been watching Star Wars since I was like 2, 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I could quote 4, 5, and 6 by the time I was, 5 years old, just because my dad, huge Star Wars fan. But yeah, it didn't feel like Star Wars at the time. But from a storytelling perspective, it was like, oh, I get how this character is this character in the movies that I love it and cherish so much. You get all that backstory because you're just, for me, thinking about old Star Wars, it's like I'm thinking as a kid, like, oh my God, it's Luke's a Jedi and he's so righteous, and Darth
Mm-hmm.
Vader's the antithesis of evil, and the Emperor, oh my God, Luke defeated the Emperor, good versus evil, blah 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 blah. With the prequel trilogy, well, yeah, it's a little childish, it's a little boring, but you get all of the backstory that you never got in the first three movies in
Well,
four,
after
five,
the
and
the
six.
sequel trilogy,
Oh, oh,
after that one, you look back at the prequels and you're like, "Oh, wow, like I really appreciate he was trying to tell a story. Like he was trying to build a political atmosphere of how someone could come in and take power. Like I really do appreciate Lucas for that and that idea. And I think no, was it written well? The dialogue? No. Was it
I
written
hate
well?
said it's coarse and it gets everywhere. Like
Yeah,
I
like the
didn't
dialogue,
need that.
especially between men and women,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they just couldn't hire a woman. Maybe I don't know what it was, but their dialogue was really poor. That was odd. Versus in the original trilogy with like Han Solo and Leia, it was just picture perfect.
Well, that was
And I was like,
Harrison
how could they
Ford.
get it
That
so
was that
right?
that wasn't George Lucas. That was Harrison Ford.
Yeah, it's just Harrison Ford being excellent and somehow carrying all of that chemistry in the movie.
Well, Harrison
But
even talks about it. Like I was listening to a interview we did a while ago, but he was just like George, specifically speaking about when Han was frozen in carbonite. Um, George had written like, Leia says I love you, and he goes I love you too, and Harrison's thinking to himself, Han's like a gruff guy. He abides by all of like the stereotypical tough male stuff. Like he would never say that. So like I feel like all of like the good lines and good dialogue and chemistry, that was all Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. That
I
wasn't
mean, maybe
George
they got
Lucas.
lucky. They hired just extremely well, and those guys improvised in that
Yeah.
way. Because I know it's true, Harrison Ford did improvise a bit. But like, but yeah, like I appreciated the story they were trying to tell in the prequels. Again, the actual dialogue wasn't as crisp. Some of the movie making stuff ended up not being good, but he did have a good picture of how it was going to go. And Revenge of the Sith was the best one out of all three. The
100%.
sequels, Force Awakens was an okay movie that they
It
basically
was
just,
just a repeat of episode 4.
yeah, they just did episode 4 again. For some reason, they can't come up with something else other than they made a new Death Star, but instead of killing one planet, it blew up 5 planets.
It
I just thought that was
killed
weird.
5 planets. Oh my God.
That
It's the
was
worst weapon
weird.
ever.
Kylo Ren was a pretty good character.
He would have been a pretty good character if he stayed evil.
Yeah, I don't. And then like, yeah, well, that's why. Yeah, Last Jedi, and then the ninth one there. I thought the last one, um, I forgot the name of it now, but episode 9.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Right. I think that was the worst, maybe the worst movie out of any of them in
It was
all of
one of the
Star
worst
Wars.
movies I've ever seen, and I've seen Jesus Christ Superstar.
You can't. They made a movie to undo the last movie. That's
Exactly.
not how you run a billions and billions of dollar franchise.
I
And it
mean, just
makes
listen to Mark Hamill talk about it. He's like, this isn't Luke Skywalker. This isn't the person who was like eternally optimistic. Like, and
well,
obviously he was contractually forced to do the movie, but like, he hates those movies and the way that they portrayed Luke.
I was just talking about my dad about this, and this is deep dive. I'm sure everyone's shut off the podcast
Oh,
by now.
but
But
definitely,
this
we're
is
still
deep. This
going
is
though.
deep dive. But like the problem with Luke Skywalker in Episode 8, okay, and this is my own opinion. This isn't someone else's take. This is me and my dad were talking about this. The people didn't want the character that Rian Johnson provided. Rian Johnson wanted Luke to be a disgruntled war veteran. He wanted the old Vietnam vet who came back home and was spit on. That's what Rian Johnson wanted. He's like, what do you need this weapon for? Like, he was beaten down, defeated. That was the character Rian Johnson prevented. And people, it was the polar opposite of what people wanted. What people wanted, fucking Dumbledore. People wanted him to be the wisest wizard, kind and all-knowing. And that's what they wanted out of Luke Skywalker. And the problem was you gave I understand what Rian Johnson was trying to do. He's trying to tell a story. He's trying to have character arcs. Like, that's what he's trying to fight. Like, that guy actually is a good filmmaker. He knows what to do, but you can't present people with, a grizzled Vietnam vet when they expect fucking Gandalf.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
anyway, that's my take.
I mean, it's a good take. I will say that like, so I'm a massive comic nerd. So like, if you look at the expanding universe stuff, which in my opinion should be canon, Luke after the episode 6, he set out to rebuild the Jedi, the Jedi not Empire, but the Jedi. Oh my God, the Jedi temples and everything like that. The Jedi Order. That's the word I'm looking for. And he became disillusioned with the politics of it. I think you can find a character that is disillusioned with the politics, but still understands the role of the Force and his role in that living Force. Like
Yeah, I mean,
I
well,
just
like, dude,
I don't understand. I think the problem is that, and this is a point that I wanted to ask you. Disney kind of didn't really have a coherent narrative that they wanted to tell. They left it up to the directors to kind of tell their own story.
yeah.
Like, do you think that's the problem with Disney Star Wars, is that like they didn't go with, kind of George's story points that he had worked out and kind of tried to wing it? Like, what do you think the
That's
problem is?
a problem. Like, that's not the only problem, right? But that is a problem that they wanted to hire J.J. Abrams to do episode 7. They thought he could relaunch it. And to be fair, he made an absolute boatload of money.
Well, Star Trek
Comes out
looked really
right.
cool.
He comes out with new characters, and the hero is the young girl, and she's gonna be the Jedi. And you got this stormtrooper and a new bad guy, and you get all these archetypes in a row, right? And I think the killing of Han Solo at the time I thought worked for the movie, but then thinking back, it's like I've heard people talk about this, like, there are young people watching. Like, did he really need to kill his dad in this movie? Like, I don't know if that's necessary in the movie. But yeah, I think they started okay, They did nothing original with it. And then again, if you have the director come in and you give him the freedom somehow to present this script or to direct it how he sees fit, you can't then take the ninth movie and retcon all of what he did in the eighth movie.
Yeah.
Like Ryan Johnson comes in and says, I'm going to subvert all these expectations. Oh, Luke, you wanted a wizard? He's actually a disgruntled vet. You thought, he did this for all the characters. He just subverted, like, Leia's force floating through space. And, people, you got like everyone hated the woke purple haired Holdo commander who's yelling at
It was the
Poe.
Holdo maneuver. Like, she could have just said she was going to do that.
People that with all the male fans like, oh my god, it's a purple-haired woman. You can't handle this one.
Who cares about that? Just like, why is she so stupid tactically? Why is she so tactically dumb?
Also, why would Poe Dameron be allowed to continuously commit mutiny and go against orders and never have a punishment?
Poe, you're doing that thing. You better stop doing it. Oh, Poe did it again. Damn.
Very weird. That should have never been able to happen. Yeah. And then again at the end with Luke doing the Force Ghost thing.
Which admittedly I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking sick.
At the time, I again thought it was sick, and then I was like, well, I'm kind of disappointed they didn't actually fight. But that is like pretty ridiculous. Like if you wanted that was him trying to give you the wizard moment. Like he's so powerful with the Force that he projected himself
across multiple light years.
Whatever, right? So like he tried to give you some of that moment. I get that's it. To be honest, the way that's filmed, some of the acting, some of the effects, it's a way better looking movie and filmed movie than 7 or 9. But again, like it's so brutally incoherent as a trilogy that you need, if they're ever going to do 10 through 12 or do something new, like I just want new people. I want new Jedi. Like we're just in the same shit over and over again. It's been 50 years.
And I don't want you to do prequels where Ki-Adi-Mundi's alive 100 years before he's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was that? That was a whole drama, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just like, I'm watching the show and I'm like, is that fucking Ki-Adi-Mundi? And
was that from Acolyte?
Yeah, Acolyte. It's just like, that's fucking Ki-Adi-Mundi. Why the hell is Ki-Adi-Mundi's not even alive yet? Because like, again, I'm a nerd. I know when Ki-Adi-Mundi's born. Yeah, and he was not supposed to be around then.
Because they need new people, and they underestimate the fandom. They underestimate how many people have read all the Extended Universe books and how many fans nerd out on all the Jedi, right? They underestimate it. Like, you could easily create a new trilogy with full new people and full Jedi, even rebuild the Order with all new people. Like, you could do virtually anything, just like Avatar The Last Airbender did, like Korra.
Yep.
Whatever 100 years or however long later.
By the way, Korra's an underrated show.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that, but I
watched all of it.
Airbender.
Last Airbender, great. I watched all of Korra. The first 2 seasons, really good. The last season, but it's still a really good show.
Well, I'm glad we went full Star Wars on this podcast.
Yeah,
I wonder what the percentage will be on your
analytics. Bro, as soon as I say the word Star Wars, the analytics is just gonna drop right off a fucking cliff. But I don't care. We're 4 weeks out from fucking training camp. What the hell else am I supposed to talk about? So let's leave it with Empire's the best movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up here tonight. We've gone way longer than I think we both expected. If you didn't like the Star Wars talk, there's going to be more. So sorry about that. But thank you for listening. Hope you have a great night. And just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us beat the algorithm. It helps us grow the community. I'm Patspro. That's Savage. Have a great night.
Peace.